In my past life, John died on the night I married him to ward off misfortune. During his lifetime, I resented him for confining me to the manor, destroying my engagement to Crown Prince Alex, and framing false charges that destroyed my family. Yet I later discovered he'd been the one who saved my life, promised me forever, and secretly protected my entire clan through his own suffering. Now he was gone. As the underworld's chill crept in, I lit flames around his coffin. Amidst the roaring fire, I climbed into his burial chamber. "John," I whispered, "tonight we wed. This coffin may be small, but it's enough to share." When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned 7 years into the past. The dangerously beautiful youth beside me gazed down with icy detachment, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "When did Miss Emily become so enlightened about throwing herself at men?" Chapter 1: The Ruthless Prodigy. This was the year my stepsister Sophia drugged me and dumped me in bed with John, the notorious black sheep of the Wilson family who'd later become the most powerful yet ill-fated young man in the capital. My fingers brushed John's face, still vibrant with youth rather than the deathly pallor I remembered. His complexion flushed pink beneath my touch despite my gentle pressure. "Meaning?" John seized my wrist, his breathing uneven though his tone remained controlled. "Haven't you held me long enough without getting handsy?" I winced at his grip but refused to look away. His moon-white robes bore wrinkles from where I'd clung to him earlier. He smoothed the fabric with feigned nonchalance, maintaining perfect composure. How cold he was. Nothing like the man he'd become. But of course this John was only 17. Not yet the tyrannical statesman. Just an untested wolf cub who'd never tasted real power. I smiled, savoring the rare sight of the future grand villain in his youth. "Mr. Wilson," I teased, "if I'm bold enough to throw myself at you, why wouldn't I touch?" His mask slipped momentarily, surprise flickering across those cunning eyes. The capital's most celebrated debutante shouldn't speak such brazen words. Little did he know my proper lady act had always been just that, an act. And I wasn't the only skilled performer here. This version of John played the aloof aristocrat flawlessly. But I recognized the rebellion simmering beneath. The bastard son who endured endless humiliation would soon spend 3 meteoric years clawing his way to power through sheer ruthless brilliance. The boy who hated rules above all else currently pretended devotion to propriety. But I remembered the truth: this carefully constructed restraint would soon shatter into glorious, terrifying madness. I was once imprisoned by John in that secluded mansion for over 300 days and nights. Whenever he looked at me, his gaze held a morbid intensity, like a ravenous beast perpetually poised to devour me whole. That was his true nature. The man before me now? Just like my reputation as the most accomplished debutante in the capital, all pretense. John and I locked eyes for a long moment. His expression remained icy and brooding. I smiled faintly, all springtime warmth and subtle dominance. Eventually, he turned away first. His voice detached as he warned, "Emily has walked into someone else's trap. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late." I reluctantly stopped smiling and glanced around. Of course I remembered this sordid scheme, orchestrated by my meek half-sister Sophia, all soft fur and hidden claws beneath her decade-long act of innocence. This year marked my coming of age, with both parents alive and our Smith family thriving. As the eldest daughter of Chancellor Smith's household, I'd been rigorously trained in literature, arts, and 6 classical disciplines. The world praised my cultivated grace and talents. Even the emperor had hinted at betrothing me to Crown Prince Alex, only awaiting formal proclamation. In my past life, I'd tempered my spirit to become the model noblewoman, striving to become an impeccable future crown princess. Yet my seemingly docile half-sister Sophia coveted that position for herself. Using our visit to Lady Wilson's birthday celebration as cover, she drugged me and delivered me to John's bedchamber. John, with his tarnished reputation and low-born status, would have ruined me through mere proximity. But Sophia underestimated us both. John hated being manipulated. In my previous life, he not only refrained from touching me but actually helped me escape. Now I realized his protection had started this early. Two choices lay before me: escape discreetly and discipline Sophia privately to preserve family honor, or turn the trap back on its creator. Last time, I chose caution. The consequence? Sophia escalated her schemes. Now, I met John's gaze with a smile. John, since the stage is set, why don't we have tea while waiting? Some pests are better crushed where they breed. His eyes narrowed assessingly, tone laced with lazy challenge. Aren't you afraid being seen with me will drag you into the mud, Emily? I lifted the teacup, smile widening. Save your breath, John. You'd never let me drown in filth. I'd once believed he'd bury me in darkness. Only later did I understand he offered me the purest sanctuary instead. John suddenly reached out, stopping my teacup midair. John? I blinked in confusion. He replied tonelessly. Don't drink that. Why? The tea has gone cold. Oh. I obediently set down the cup. My chronic stomach condition meant I strictly avoided chilled foods or drinks. After a brief silence, I suddenly snapped my head up to stare at him. In my previous life, after being drugged into unconsciousness, John had ultimately splashed cold tea on my face to wake me. He'd then driven me away with harsh words. But this time, the untouched teacup remained. No splashed water. No harshness. No urgency to eject me. So how had I awakened? Testing my mobility, I noticed a dull ache in my waist. In his later years as Washington's most notorious political operator, John had developed wolfish appetites. Yet I'd foolishly dismissed his worth, clinging to hatred for his ruthless reputation. When denied, he gripped my waist while murmuring Emily like some wounded creature begging mercy. This familiar tenderness around my waist, could he have? John, I ventured. You're being rather rough. It hurts. The John I'd known would have softened instantly at such words. Instead, his shadowed eyes remained impenetrable as he uttered a humorless chuckle. Emily thrashed and wept in her drugged sleep like one tormented. The moment I approached, you clung like ivy. Attempts to disengage only tightened your grip. You even declared. He paused deliberately. My pulse quickened. What did I say? His voice lowered, lips twisting with mockery. You vowed that if we couldn't share a bed in life, we'd share a grave in death. Insisted the underworld's chill required our joint passage. Heat flooded my cheeks. His gaze shifted to the abandoned teacup. I'd intended the cold tea remedy, but your delusions escalated alongside your octopus embrace. Hence the physical intervention. Harsh perhaps, but necessary to break your nightmare. I studied him, dissecting each syllable. Flawless logic. No hidden tenderness, merely my interference derailing original events. Crushing disappointment settled in my chest. Dawnlight haloed his profile as he delivered the final blow with glacial detachment, amusing fantasies. Emily. But as I value my mortality, I'll navigate the underworld solo when the time comes. I nodded numbly. Of course. Everyone clings to life. No one chooses death. Such a cautious man who cherished his life, yet in his previous existence, he didn't live past 25. With red-rimmed eyes, I smiled gently at John. Understood. Since John helped me today, I'll pray daily for his long life and protection from calamities. Perhaps my sincerity sounded too intense, bordering on incredulity. John studied me with probing intensity. Without further explanation, I straightened my dress and hair into proper decorum, awaiting my prey. I knew Sophia would arrive precisely on schedule, leading Alex to find me. True to prediction, within minutes, a crowd swarmed John's doorway. The unlocked door yielded easily to their intrusion. The first faux innocent inquiry came from Sophia. Sister? Why are you resting in Mr. Wilson's chamber? Reborn. I examined this stepsister anew. Though born to a concubine, she'd been raised by my mother after her own mother's death. Our Smith family had clothed and adorned her equally. Yet she persistently wore plain white dresses with wooden hairpins, quoting tea poems about rejecting worldly luxuries. Her calculated poverty wasn't asceticism but manipulation. The paler her gowns, the brighter others' pity shone. She'd mastered the art of tragic beauty, believing this fragile image would captivate Alex's protective instincts. Meeting her feigned concern, I smiled. Repeat that? Her mask slipped momentarily at my composure. Years of practice reclaimed her features as she channeled righteous indignation. You should have rested in the guest quarters after drinking. How could you disgrace Mr. Wilson's private rooms? Slap. My palm left crimson streaks across her cheek. The crowd hushed as she gaped. Rubbing my stinging hand, I declared, when did you witness me sleeping here? Our Smith family teaches proper conduct for guests. I came to borrow books. Yet you publicly accuse me of drunken impropriety. Is this how you honor our family name? Does this slap seem unjust? Sophia had anticipated finding me disheveled and defenseless. Even in my previous life, I'd protected family reputation by enduring her schemes silently. But today, seated perfectly composed, I'd turned her trap inside out. People aren't blind, especially not now. John's bedchamber remains immaculate. My attire perfectly composed. These gathered aristocrats from prominent families like the Wilsons and Smiths have all witnessed their share of scandals behind closed doors. My subtle implication alone sparks their understanding. They've been manipulated as pawns by Sophia. From this moment, her words hold no credibility among the elite. My gaze sweeps the room, met with increasingly stormy expressions as realization dawns. Sophia clutches her reddened cheek, venom flashing through her tearful doe eyes. But her practiced vulnerability finds no sympathy now. As guests disperse like autumn leaves, the tense silence thickens. Your Highness, Sophia's trembling address to Alex hangs unanswered. The Crown Prince instead approaches me, his concern velvet-wrapped. Emily, does your hand pain you? Sophia's lips whiten with suppressed fury. This gentle prince who'd always shown her kindness now ignores her disheveled state entirely. His attention stays fixed on me, the woman who'd shared childhood firefly hunts and poetry lessons with him. Once betrothed to become his future queen. Alex's fingers brush my palm, cool as mountain snowmelt. You've reddened your skin, he murmurs. The perfect portrait of devotion. I suppress bitter laughter. This same tender prince would later order Mike's execution and the Smith family's ruin in my past life. My peripheral vision catches John's glacial stare from across the chamber. The notorious Wilson heir sits motionless. Yet dark intensity radiates from him like gathering thunderclouds. Before I can approach, new footsteps disrupt the tension. What's this nonsense I hear? Mike bursts through the courtyard, fiery concern matching his auburn hair. His protective glare lands on Sophia. Who dared trouble my sister? My breath catches, there stands Mike. Alive and vibrant. Not the bloodied corpse haunting my memories. Sophia Lee bit her lip, visibly intimidated by Mike Brown as she turned pleading eyes toward Alex Taylor. Mike snorted coldly. Sophia, why are you looking at the Crown Prince? After framing your own sister, did you think Alex would take your side? Everyone knows he always prioritizes Emily first. I didn't, it wasn't intentional. Sophia stammered. Save your act. We both know what you did. Mike pivoted to Alex with a radiant grin. Right, Alex? You've always protected Emily. A faint smile touched Alex's lips. Mike's correct. Mike's grin widened as he threw me a triumphant glance. Dressed in fiery red with his hair ribbon fluttering in the autumn breeze, he embodied the very essence of reckless youth. My throat tightened as I gazed at my vibrant younger brother. Mike. We'll discuss the rest at home. True to form, Mike obediently nodded while clutching his sword. Sure. How much longer? Mom sent me to escort you. Alex maintained his practiced facade of gentleness. Emily, you've had a taxing day. I'll arrange an escort for your return. I studied his deceptively tender expression. Memories surfacing of his past betrayal, how he dispatched Mike to investigate evidence against the Duke of Chin in the southern frontier, deliberately abandoning him to die amidst venomous creatures. I burn to demand, when you affectionately call him Mike, does even a shred of sincerity exist? In our previous life, Alex had used Mike's bloodied corpse to expose the Duke's collusion with the Southern Kingdom. He'd won spectacularly, brandishing Mike's death as irrefutable proof while feigning righteous fury before the court. The world believed his act. So did I. The truth? Those venomous traps were his design. From the beginning, he'd planned to sacrifice Mike as a stepping stone. Yet Mike had idolized him since childhood, training relentlessly with swords to defend him, studying governance to assist his rule. How could Alex discard such unwavering loyalty? When news of Mike's death first arrived, I'd begged Alex through tears to retrieve his remains. He dismissed me with that same gentle tone, "You're overwrought. Emily, let me take you home." I never understood his refusal until John approached me weeks later. "I've located your brother's burial site. Take me there." We were near strangers then. I didn't know why the notorious Wilson heir would help, but I clung to that fragile hope like a lifeline. So I mounted John's horse. After traveling through the night, we finally reached the desolate grave where Mike was buried, and I had someone exhume the body for examination. It was then that I understood why Alex refused to bring Mike's body back to the capital. The corpse held evidence of how he'd killed him. Mike's martial arts were exceptional, ordinary southern poisons couldn't touch him. His death came from a soul-guiding incense, a toxin Alex specifically developed to control his death warriors. He'd used it on his own protege. Yet Alex, for some laughable shred of sentiment, hadn't destroyed the body. That oversight let me uncover everything. But now, reborn with time still on my side, Mike lives. He's here to protect me, just as Alex maintains his saintly facade to keep the Smith family's support. "Emily?" The counterfeit saint called again, his fingers brushing mine. I withdrew my hand coldly. Breaking with the crown prince now would be unwise, though the emptiness of Alex's lingering palm almost amused me. A derisive chuckle cut through the tension. "Not taking what's yours?" John's voice coiled from the shadows. He lounged beneath sunlit lattices, pale as moonlit frost, that unnerving beauty sharpening his words. "The attic's too narrow for company. You'll need to accompany me personally." The audacity. That lie about Sophia framing me was my own creation. Yet he wielded it like a blade to separate me from Alex. Fine. Let him play this game. I knew exactly what awaited in his sealed attic, walls papered with my likeness. "Psycho," I muttered, climbing the creaking stairs behind him. Sophia's poison still weakened my steps. When my foot slipped, I almost welcomed the fall. After dying in John's arms through roaring flames last lifetime, what was a tumble? Let him scheme. This time, I danced through every trap wide-eyed. But as I gazed at the tall, lean figure of John ahead, I suddenly felt an immeasurable distance between us. I wanted to embrace him, to close that gap. So, feigning a misstep on the final stair, I let out a practiced gasp. John whirled around instantly, his grip firm around my wrist. I tumbled into his arms deliberately, my hands locking around his waist as his heartbeat pulsed against my ear. Hidden from his view, my lips curved in triumphant satisfaction. His body tensed noticeably. Soon recognizing my clumsy charade, he let out a low, unsettling chuckle near my temple, holding this tight. "Emily, doesn't my filth repulse you?" The words felt familiar. He'd asked once before. In my previous life, after Mike's death, John had sought me out, offering to take me to Mike's burial site. My poor horsemanship forced us to share a saddle. Through the frigid autumn night, shivering uncontrollably. I'd stubbornly refused the cloak he tossed me despite chattering teeth. His mocking tone still echoed, "Does my dirt offend Miss Emily?" That moonlit night. His smile had masked eyes glinting with icy desolation. The bastard son of a courtesan. John remained an unwelcome stain on the Wilson family's prestige, a dynasty that had produced cabinet members and socialites across 4 presidential administrations. Many in Washington's elite circles still whispered about the brothel whelps sullying their legacy. Though acknowledged by his father, John dwelled in neglected wings. His doors open to every insult, nurturing resentment in shadows. He'd grown into this twisted version of himself. Last time he'd asked that question, I'd swallowed my pride. Clutching his cloak around me, I'd pressed into his warmth as we rode. The drumming hooves and howling wind couldn't drown the frantic rhythm where his chest met my back. Now, facing the same taunt, I let my lips brush his ear. "You're not dirty, John. You're the purest soul here. The filth belongs to your father, defiling your mother's body and poisoning your existence. The rot festers in those social climbers, their minds sewage, their mouths unworthy of speaking your name. John, this whole Wilson estate isn't fit to house you. Leave it behind." Silence hung thick enough to smother. Suddenly he buried his face in my neck, breath hot against skin. "Such pretty lies. Emily, what shall I do for you in return?" "Simple." My smile widened. "Be my blade when justice needs blood. My remedy when healing requires courage. My groom when I choose a husband." His gaze sharpened, stormy eyes betraying manic intensity. Blade, remedy, groom? However composed he pretended, the madness always surfaced. Those eyes now blazed with obsessive hunger. I reached for the attic door. "John Wilson, stop pretending. Haven't you been watching me for a while now?" I challenged, gesturing around the room. "Every inch of these walls should be covered with my portraits. Am I wrong?" The door creaked open. My confidence shattered. Where were the paintings? Not a single image of me hung beneath the sunset glow filtering through lattice windows, illuminating only orderly scrolls lining the shelves. Is this before you started painting this year?" I mumbled awkwardly, turning toward John. The pale, brooding teenager arched an eyebrow, his thin lips curling into a smirk. "So Miss Emily wants me to paint her? To fill this entire room with her likeness?" Silence stretched between us. John retrieved a volume from the top shelf, pressing it into my hands. As I turned to leave, his cold fingers suddenly cupped my face. Fever-bright eyes burned into mine, his voice roughening with dangerous obsession. "How did you uncover my secret, Emily? If I cover these walls with your image, you'll belong to me. Let's start tomorrow. Emily, my Emily." Even young madmen remain mad. As John whispered twisted declarations, his lips brushing my name like a prayer, I tilted my head to meet his black hole gaze swirling with hunger. "You were always such an excellent actor, John." My lips ghosted across his cheekbone before I pulled away. He froze. Crimson bloomed across his pale eyelids. When he spoke again, his voice fractured. "Were you a little kitten in your past life, Emily? Stealing hearts then fleeing without consequences?" The words tangled, pleading yet defiant, desperate yet controlled. I simply smiled, savoring the game. When had this obsession begun? Did he already consider me his possession? Our paths crossed only twice before my coming-of-age ceremony. The first winter. Record snowfall. Seeking solitude during my snow-viewing excursion, I stumbled upon John pinned in drifts by noble bullies. My furious shout halted them. They retreated at the Smith family's reputation. John remained statue still, pride intact until their footsteps faded. Then blood bloomed crimson on snow as he coughed. Instinctively I steadied him, offering my handkerchief while signaling Maid Clara for help. He staggered upright, eyes locking on the blood-stained linen. "Unnecessary." His bitter laugh crystallized in the frozen air. "Miss Smith, You should keep your distance from someone like me to avoid tarnishing yourself." With those words, he walked away, his tall slender frame dissolving into the snowy landscape. That was the first time I truly noticed John. Stubborn, brooding, ruthless, and utterly alone. He was like a predator lying in wait. Having grown up among privileged heirs of prominent families where alliances were transactional, I understood why society scorned John. The illegitimate son of a courtesan from the Wilson family, he held no social currency. Meanwhile, I enjoyed multiple honors, eldest daughter of the Smith family, the capital's most accomplished debutante, future bride of Crown Prince Alex. Naturally, I basked in constant admiration while John dwelled in isolation. Our social circles inevitably overlapped at countless galas. After that initial encounter, I occasionally glimpsed John lingering in shadowed corners, observing the glittering crowds with fleeting disdain. Our eyes sometimes met across ballrooms. I'd offer polite smiles, he'd coldly look away. When whispers about his seductive face inherited from that harlot mother circulated, I'd employ my reputation as the model gentlewoman. Gossip ill becomes ladies and gentlemen. I'd demurely remind them. Fan fluttering. Sometimes, when particularly annoyed, I'd sweetly recount folklore. They say hell's first layer tears out slanderers' tongues with red-hot pincers, slowly, agonizingly. This macabre tactic proved more effective than etiquette lessons. My audience would pale into terrified silence. Except once when my chilling tale concluded, I heard soft laughter behind me. Turning cautiously, I found John observing me with amused intensity. Mortified, I stammered, "Mr. Wilson, I wasn't speaking of you. Miss Emily." He interrupted, my American name curling dangerously on his lips, freezing my practiced explanations midair. The way he said it felt like winter sunlight, beautiful yet biting, exposing every carefully constructed pretense. I blinked in confusion. John asked. "If the tongue-ripping hell is the first layer, what about the remaining 17? What other hells exist?" I answered. "The second is scissor hell. The third iron tree hell. The fourth mirror of sin hell." My voice trailed off as I realized my mistake. As the celebrated intellectual of the capital, I was supposed to quote sages and philosophers, not recite obscure hells from fringe manuscripts. One casual mention might pass, but continuing this morbid list would shatter my carefully cultivated image. Annoyed, I shot him a covert glare. After I'd discreetly shielded his reputation earlier, was he now trying to sabotage me? John's lips curved. "I do hope to someday hear Miss Emily recount all 18 hells." These were my 2 encounters with John before my coming-of-age ceremony. First, I witnessed his vulnerability during a snowstorm. Second, he pierced through my social facade. So this wolf pup had targeted me that early? Returning to the present, I disentangled myself from John's arms as sunset painted the window. Flipping through the book he'd given me, I leaned against the doorway with a smile. "John, curious about the 5th hell?" His gaze lingered as his voice dipped provocatively. "Does this mean Miss Emily finally intends to continue? Win against Crown Prince Alex with me at next month's autumn hunt?" I countered. "And I'll tell you, this year's hunt would host an assassination attempt. Alex would earn imperial favor by heroically rescuing the emperor, though he'd actually orchestrated the attack for political gain. My stepsister Sophia would seize the chaos to push me toward assassin's blades. Last life, John took that poison strike meant for me. Though he rose to power later, the injury doomed him to an early grave despite all remedies. This time, Sophia and Alex would pay blood for blood. Yet I forgot John's insatiable nature. He closed the distance, smile sharpening. "Not enough. Emily, if I win, you'll recite those hells on our wedding night." His breath burned against my ear as I laughed. "Deal." Descending the stairs with his book, I heard his murmur behind me, "I'm beginning to believe your prophetic dreams now." This sudden kindness, Do you seek to amend regrets from those nightmares? I turned to look at him. All my bitterness condensed into a single sentence, yes. The dream was filled with regrets. John Wilson leaned lazily against the doorframe, his charming smile widening. Seems it wasn't pleasant after all. Though I've dreamed of you over 1,000 times. Emily. This is only your first time dreaming of me. Perhaps you should try to eat well and sleep tight. And dream of me more often. Maybe next time it'll be better. My nose stung as I nodded agreement. I felt his gaze lingering but couldn't bear meeting those intense eyes again. Hastily murmuring assent before fleeing. Staying longer risked tears betraying me. He'd showered me with sweet words in our past life too. I'd never believed them then. Rarely responding. I'd witnessed blood spray across his face during executions. Seen him dismember traitors and pickle limbs in wine jars. His declarations had sounded like madness to me. Especially after learning how he'd climbed the power ladder. John had endured childhood abuse. Biding his time while secretly studying literature. Mastering swordsmanship. And amassing wealth through multiple aliases. The seemingly pitiful youth had already built a hidden fortune. Awaiting his moment. That moment came. But I destroyed his future. The autumn hunting accident where he saved me might have been incidental. Yet the poisoned blade cut his life short within years. Initially, medications let him maintain power undetected. I only learned his secret when taken to his estate during the Smith family's downfall the final year of his life. Trapped in his manor. I heard his muffled coughs through walls. Smelled perpetual medicinal fumes. Saw blood-stained robes. He stopped hiding it. Even weaponizing his frailty, dying here. Emily. Won't you say something kind? So fond of Alex? That snake doesn't deserve you. They say marriage wards off death. Consider it? Fine. Don't glare. Is my house so dreadful? Stay till I'm gone. My bond with Alex was mere childhood friendship. Shattered when he killed my brother Mike. Yet John kept needling about him. Watching my reactions. I never believed his affection genuine, only resentment for ruining his ambitions when saving me. Most absurd was his insistence on teaching me swordsmanship. The heavy blade made my arms ache instantly. I'd throw it down petulantly. This pampered girl who'd never lifted more than embroidery hoops before her family's ruin. John rarely showed such a somber expression in front of me. You complain daggers are too short. Swords too heavy. Hidden weapons you call inaccurate. Archery makes your arms ache. Emily's hands are truly precious. What exactly are you willing to learn? I retorted sharply. Why should I learn those? To become a murderer like you? He laughed. Though it sounded more like bitter amusement. The laughter soon turned into violent coughing. Blood staining his pale lips. I thought he'd finally give up. Yet, after recovering, he calmly wiped the blood and resumed teaching. His smile laced with threat. If Emily can't master leaf-throwing techniques today, perhaps she'll assist with my bath? I cursed him mentally for being deranged. But his threats worked wonders. To avoid intimate encounters, I reluctantly acquired various skills. Gradually, I witnessed John's transformation from a charismatic noble to a cornered beast fighting death itself. His hands grew weaker. Swords slipped from his grasp. Bows became too heavy. Now it was my turn to mock. What's the point of living as a villain? When you die, no one will mourn. They'll celebrate. He stared intently. Not even you? Never. Something flickered in his eyes before he smirked. Then existence truly holds no meaning. Why cling to life then? I pressed. Stop taking medicine. Die cleanly. Instead of anger, weariness colored his features. Heartless kitten. Who'll protect you if I perish? You refuse to kill even chickens. How dare I die before eliminating every threat? He usually called me Emily, claiming it suited a cat. But kitten emerged during his darker moods. On the day he finally released me, Sickness had hollowed his frame. Struggling for breath yet eyes blazing, he rasped, "When I'm gone, stop resenting me, or I'll haunt your dreams." Entwining pleasure with torment. Abruptly stopping, he laughed bitterly, eyes glistening. "Never mind. There are no ghosts. No more villains like me to plague your world." Later I understood. John Wilson bowed to no deity, recognized no morality. He'd willingly donned the devil's mantle to walk through hell. In this corrupt political arena where power crushed souls, he fought fire with fiercer flames. Using wickedness to purge wickedness, he waged endless war against the greedy and vile until his last breath. None of the people John killed were decent folk. They were all demons. He'd rooted out monsters who'd harmed me and countless others, hiding behind pious facades till the very end. When the whole world condemned him, he merely smirked in that icy way. Insults had been his childhood lullaby. Saints were for fools anyway. I arrived too late when rushing to marry into the Wilson family to bring him luck. John lay comatose on his sickbed, departing this world without ever seeing me in bridal silks. My lips brushed his marble-cold mouth as I choked out endless apologies. In that moment, I prayed with every fiber that ghosts were real, that they'd come punish me. The carriage ride home felt surreal. Mike's voice snapped me from my daze. "Emily, that Wilson bastard didn't touch you, did he? His reputation's filthier than the Thames docks. Even Alex seems uneasy about you mingling with their kind." I studied my brother, aching to reveal how he'd die in our previous life, betrayed by his beloved Alex, with only John traveling weeks to claim his mutilated corpse from bandit country. Noticing my dark expression, Mike softened his tone. "Sis? What's wrong?" I tested the waters. "If Alex and I became enemies, who would you choose?" His laughter rang hollow. "Why would our golden girl oppose the crown prince?" Through the carriage window, I watched merchants hawk wares beneath the palace's shadow. Courts devour souls. "Mike, your precious Alex, he's already been swallowed whole." His eyes narrowed. "Planning to jilt the future emperor? Father says the royal betrothal decree comes mid-autumn festival." "Don't fret." I smiled bitterly. "That decree will never reach me. The assassination attempt would happen before the festival. Last lifetime, John had schemed to break my engagement. This time, I'd do the honors." Back at the Smith estate, maids whispered how Sophia knelt in the ancestral hall, palms bloodied from cane strikes, condemned to 3 days without food. The little viper had raced home to play victim, but I'd sent messengers ahead with my account, even scripting her predictable denials for my parents. Mother forced medicinal broth down my throat. Dismissing servants before collapsing into tears, we raised that snake in our bosom. "To think she'd drug you and dump you in that Wilson reprobate's bedchamber." "If he'd," my mother grew more agitated as she spoke. I feared she'd start cursing John next, so I quickly soothed her with praises about how he'd helped us. Yet her focus shifted oddly. "But John's supposed to be that promiscuous troublemaker everyone gossips about. Why would he help you?" I smiled faintly. "That's why we shouldn't trust rumors over our own eyes." Though Sophia's drug hadn't been strong, its lingering effects proved vicious. John had taught me antidotes in our past life, but my clumsy execution failed me. After surviving the initial crisis, I fell into days of raging fever. Between delirium and consciousness, time blurred. I heard fractured realities, doctors murmuring diagnoses, father's heavy sighs, mother's tearful sniffles. Then someone took my hand, their tender voice caressing my name. Crown Prince Alex had come. His presence resurrected terrible memories: Mike's mutilated corpse, mother's vacant stare after losing her son, elderly father kneeling before Alex's throne begging mercy for our family. In our previous life, Alex used the Smith family's influence to crush rivals, then turned on us when we became too powerful. As regent during the emperor's illness, his first decree destroyed our house. They stripped me of status, forced me to sing bawdy tunes outside brothels while jeering men speculated about auctioning the capital's prized scholar. John arrived hours later. Lips bloodless from rushing. His trembling voice betrayed emotions alien to the ruthless statesman. "I'm late, Emily." Midway, he reverted to cold mockery. "You prefer gentle men. Yet your precious crown prince abandoned you. I'm no saint. But at least I'll shelter you." He yanked me into his cloak's protection. All harsh movements and hidden tenderness. He drew his sword on the spot and killed the madam who forced me to sing vulgar songs. Then he ordered his men to cut out the tongues of those men who mocked my lowly status. And for good measure, gouged out their eyes. The floor ran red with blood. Even with such brutality, people only dared curse this ruthless power broker behind closed doors, calling him a treacherous villain who'd meet a wretched end. Not a soul dared stand against his blade. Finally, he swept me up in his arms and left with theatrical flair. The memories swirled like murky water. Yet Alex's voice pierced through again. "Emily? Emily?" What a joke. When John called me Emily, his lingering vowels curled like smoke. Every breathy syllable an invitation. But hearing this prince utter the same endearment turned my stomach. Hatred fueled my struggle to open eyes crusted with exhaustion. Alex's concern appeared genuine as he tightened his grip on my hand. "Emily, are you feeling better?" I yanked my hand back, trembling from the effort. "Your Highness, please keep your distance." It took every ounce of will not to snarl get lost. His princely composure faltered. "Emily, what's this about?" I forced apologetic tones. "My stomach condition causes nausea during flare-ups. I'd hate to vomit on you." After waited silence, Alex chided with saccharine concern. "Such nonsense. Would I ever disdain you?" His hand lifted to stroke my hair. I turned away sharply. "Because I'm the one disgusted by you." His suspended hand twitched before retreating. I scanned the room, zeroing in on his gifts. "Clara, who lit that eaglewood incense? And those pastries, toss them out immediately." "But, His Highness brought those." My maid hesitated. I dry heaved dramatically. "The clashing scents are making me queasy." Alex's famed composure cracked. "Apparently my gifts displease you," he said through frozen smiles. "Dispose of them then." Yet objects weren't enough. What truly nauseated me was his presence. Meeting his gaze, I covered my mouth with fresh theatrics. The crown prince had never endured such disrespect. All pretense vanished as he spat. "Since you're unwell, I'll return another day." Watching his retreat, I exhaled shakily before dismissing all servants. Finally, silence. My fingers brushed the unfamiliar jade bracelet circling my wrist. "Come out, John. I know you're here." The jade bracelet felt hauntingly familiar. John had placed it on my wrist in our past life, forbidding me to ever remove it, his mother's sole remaining keepsake he'd once guarded more fiercely than his own life. Yet ultimately gifted to me. Back then, I'd foolishly shattered it during a careless moment. I still remember him kneeling amidst the fragments, pale lips twisting into that bitter smile. "Do you detest my gifts so thoroughly, Emily? Must you erase every trace of me after I'm gone?" My own blindness condemned me. I'd mistaken devotion for chains, traded diamonds for pebbles. Now, 7 years ahead of fate's schedule, the bracelet again encircled my wrist. I sensed his presence in the shadows, could practically see those predatory phoenix eyes glinting with dark amusement. As expected, his arms materialized around my waist, lifting me effortlessly. "Release me, John," I protested, squirming in his grasp. "Have you forgotten this is my bedchamber?" The wolf who'd starved for decades nuzzled my neck. "You seemed rather comfortable in my bed last week." Emily, clinging to me like weeping ivy, whispering confessions. Heat flooded my cheeks. He brushed a kiss over my eyelids before reluctantly lowering me onto the sheets. His fingers lingered on the bracelet, tracing circles on my palm. "It's been blessed, repels vermin." Lies. Clever lies to mock Alex while ensuring I'd keep wearing it. Yet I played along. Then I'll guard it carefully. The tension in his shoulders eased. Lips curving in genuine pleasure. Open wide. Darling. Before I could react, bitter herbs exploded across my tongue. As I gagged, his mouth sealed over mine, swallowing my protests until I obeyed. He withdrew slowly, thumb wiping my lower lip. We'll continue this when you've recovered. Breathless against his chest. I glared at this obsessive predator. Planning to become my medicine yourself. Mr. Wilson? He chuckled softly. Emily truly understands me. Never mind. After taking his medicine, I grew drowsy and soon drifted into uneasy sleep. In my haze, I felt an odd sensation brush against my hand. I barely lifted my eyelids to find John obsessively toying with my fingers. Carried away, he nipped at my fingertip. Both Alex and I have held your hand, he murmured, storm brewing behind his dark gaze. Which touch do you prefer, Emily? That dangerous glint told me the madman's self-control was fraying again, jealousy burning through his veins. I lazily arched a brow. John, must you court misery? Isn't your lifespan already shortened enough? The man's self-destructive streak knew no bounds. As a youth enduring endless humiliations, he'd swallowed blood and bitterness until illness became his shadow. Later, he'd pushed his body beyond reason in martial training, accumulating internal injuries that further drained his vitality. Wealth and power had come at the cost of his health. Last lifetime, he'd sacrificed what remained to save me. This time, I meant to stretch his days longer. John stilled. Clearly startled, I knew this secret. His phoenix eyes narrowed. Miss Emily's talents never ceased to amaze. Have you been rifling through my private affairs? I traced his jawline with feigned nonchalance. Does that frighten you? Dark amusement colored his laugh. Fear you? Perhaps. Fear you might reconsider our engagement upon learning how few years I have left? TCH. The wolf cub was playing wounded again. Enough with that short lifespan nonsense. I glared. If Alex displeases you so, my nails dug into his palm. Eliminate him sooner. I never noticed when John left. By morning, the fever had broken completely. His medicines worked frighteningly well. During my illness, news of Sophia's attempted scheme at the Wilson estate had spread through the capital. Naturally, John's fingerprints were all over the scandal. The vindictive creature never forgot a slight. Last lifetime, he'd tolerated Sophia solely for being my sister. Now that he saw our estrangement, he'd unleashed hell without restraint. Sophia emerged from days of penitence in the family shrine, ghost pale and trembling, ordered by father to apologize. She stood before me with venom glinting through her frailty. Emily, she hissed, dropping all pretense. You knew my plan all along, didn't you? Waited in John's chambers to trap me. Interesting. Her time kneeling had brewed new theories. I examined my painted nails. Darling sister, I purred. Did you truly think a third-rate scheme could outmaneuver the Wilsons? Sophia Lee, you schemed so desperately to harm me. Wasn't it all to seduce Crown Prince Alexander Taylor? I'll surrender him to you. How about that? Sophia seemed utterly unprepared for my words, freezing mid-snarl. When she finally spoke, her venomous tone shifted to bewildered softness. Sister, what did you say? So only by relinquishing the crown prince would she deign to call me sister. No wonder in our past life, after Mike's death drove me to sever ties with Alex, she'd appeared in my chambers with crocodile tears, crooning eldest sister through that poisonous smile. While the Smith family estate crumbled, she alone emerged pristine, standing amidst the ruins to sneer at my stupidity. She gloated about planting forged letters in father's study despite my vigilance. Our father. Her father. The Smith family mansion. Her ancestral home too. I'd never imagined she'd sacrifice her own bloodline to curry favor with the crown prince. When I demanded why, she laughed wildly. Curry favor? I'm using Alex to destroy this wretched estate. Remember how my mother died? Forgotten in that country manor. Driven mad by fever. You denied her even a memorial tablet. I hate father. Hate you. Most of all, that sanctimonious mother of yours. Her eyes glittered with decades-old malice. Know how your precious mother went mad? Years of carefully measured poison in her tea. After Mike's death, I decided she deserved acceleration. Madness suits her. My mother raved for father and your mother's deaths too in her final days. That day revealed her true nature. The half-sister we'd tolerated for kinship's sake was a rabid creature. Her birth mother, that greedy concubine, had tried poisoning my mother during her illness. Father, though flawed, recognized the viper in his household. After the attempted murder, he banished the woman to distant estates. The winter of my mother's recovery saw the concubines descend into madness and death. In misguided mercy, mother raised Sophia as her own, only to nurture this venomous serpent. Now reborn, I see clearly. Sophia's rot runs too deep for redemption. Feigning patience, I met her calculating gaze. No need for schemes. Sister, take the crown prince. Frankly, as a bastard daughter, you'll never be his primary consort. Perhaps strive for concubine status? Her shock mirrored a startled vulture. Emily, you'd truly abandon Alex? Drawing upon the acting skills she'd taught me in our previous life, I conjured tears. If he comes between sisters, I'll gladly renounce him. My performance dripped with saccharine sincerity. Sophia stared, then erupted in mocking laughter. The cruel cackle of one who mistakes mercy for weakness. Then I really should thank you. Sophia. Since you're already helping, why not go all the way? Arrange a few more encounters and secure me the position of the crown prince's concubine. I deliberately paused, then pretended to be wounded, forcing a strained smile. Fine. Sophia. I'll send you straight to hell. Bury you 6 feet under. From then on, every time Alex came to visit, Sophia would shamelessly linger nearby. I said nothing, deliberately allowing her to entangle herself with Alex. Eventually, I stopped leaving my room altogether, burying myself in books. After all, Sophia kept watch in the courtyard. Whenever Alex arrived, she'd pull out all the stops to seduce him. Meanwhile, Chunner would stomp around my room in frustration. Miss Emily, you should have seen how Miss Sophia practically threw herself into Alex's arms. Miss Sophia fed Alex pastries today, using one she'd already bitten into. Alex clearly said he came to see you. Why does he always end up with Miss Sophia? I smiled. Because he's indecisive, wanting to have both sisters. Days later, Alex finally cornered me. Emily, what's wrong? How long will you keep avoiding me? His voice was tender yet wounded, as if I'd committed some grave offense against him. Pathetic. A demon cloaked in angel's skin. Soon, his reign of comfort would end. Maintaining perfect poise, I stepped back gracefully. The court's turmoil demands your attention. I feared constant attachment might fuel rumors of you being distracted by romance. Alex's face stiffened. Visiting the Smith family mansion frequently was part of his political strategy. He'd been weaving his tender web, binding us to his cause. Years of meticulous effort had created this seamless alliance. Yet I chose to remind him I wanted him flustered, struggling, relishing his disarray. True enough. His composure cracked. How thoughtful of you, Emily, he forced out. His probing tone met my silent smile, leaving him guessing. After Alex left, Sophia confronted me. Clearly, she'd rushed over upon hearing about his private visit. My calculated leniency had long since eroded Sophia's need for pretense. Once the meek, content rabbit who coveted neither gold nor jade, now transformed into a brash tyrant. Servants faced slaps for minor slights. Even parental reprimands barely checked her. She carried herself as Alex's future consort. When she barged into my room, her expression struck me as eerily familiar. The face of all-consuming jealousy and insatiable hunger. She was just like her deceased concubine mother. All those years she pretended so well. It must have been exhausting for her. Emily, I have to admire your tactics. You claimed to step aside and let me have Alex. Yet now you're luring him back to your chambers? What did you say to him just now? Sophia hissed, venomous jealousy dripping from her whispered words. I met her gaze with lazy amusement. Answering truthfully, he came demanding why I've been avoiding him. Said he's hurt that I keep pushing him toward you. Sophia's expression darkened instantly. Impossible. He clearly, her words caught mid-sentence. I pressed my advantage. Yes. He clearly enjoys your flirtations and playful antics. But Sophia, you're not trying hard enough. Those tricks you're using? They're what common prostitutes rely on. Her head snapped up at the insult, eyes blazing with murderous rage. Yet she still leaned closer, desperate for more guidance. Then what would you consider sophisticated methods? Resting my chin on my hand, I drawled, subtle. Gentle affection means nothing to a crown prince like Alex. You need to give him something unforgettable brilliance that strikes like lightning. If you can't manage that, I let the pause linger meaningfully. Men can take women by force. Why shouldn't women do the same? Create an inescapable obligation during high-profile events. Obligation? Sophia sneered. You mean drugging him? How's that different from a whore's scheme? Do you take me for a fool? Emily? He's the crown prince. I'd be executed before succeeding. I chuckled. There's another kind of obligation. What debt demands repayment through marriage? Understanding dawned in her eyes as she breathed. A life debt. He'd have to marry me if I saved his life. Leaning closer, I planted the poisonous seed. Exactly. As crown prince, assassination attempts come with the position. 2 or 3 yearly. At least. Whether you dare gamble when the moment comes, I trailed off meaningfully. Sophia contemplated this before flashing her signature deceptively sweet smile. No wonder they call you the capital's most accomplished lady. Emily. Truly versed in every strategy. I smiled, unbothered by her sarcasm. Her barb proved it, the seed had taken root. The autumn hunt commenced with unusual fanfare. The Empress herself accompanied the Emperor, swapping court robes for hunting leathers as she boasted about bagging game. The Emperor openly indulged her. We'll feast on whatever my warrior queen provides today. Courtiers chuckled obligingly. Only Crown Prince Alex wore a strained smile, his perpetual predicament. The current Empress wasn't his birth mother, but his stepmother. The Crown Prince Alex Taylor was the son of the late Empress. The current Empress, barely over 30 from a military family, had a 12-year-old prince of her own, Prince of Jing, a bright and composed boy. With the Emperor deeply devoted to his new wife, Alex found himself navigating treacherous political waters, scheming relentlessly to maintain his position until even his conscience became collateral damage. Through the crowd, my gaze found John. He sat motionless amidst the chaos as always, those wintry eyes unchanged, except for the sword at his side now. Our eyes met, his pale lips quirking in that faint smirk. As I passed him, his pinky stealthily hooked mine. I shot him a warning glare, mindful of prying eyes jeopardizing our plans. His marble-carved composure cracked as he leaned closer, voice dipping into that dangerous purr. The studio at the estate overflows with canvases. Emily, when will you grace them with your presence? Heat flooded my cheeks at the implication. Madman. Even now. My internal clock ticked. Southern assassins would descend any moment. Don't get hurt. I hissed. Injuries meant death, we'd discussed this endlessly. My urgency only fueled his mischief. John's lips brushed my ear. Molten words seeping into my bones, first your medicine. Now your blade, still waiting to become your groom. Sweetheart. Death's not on today's agenda. Chaos erupted before I could retort. Steel clashed as hunting grounds transformed into battleground. Amidst screams and clanging metal, John flashed that reckless grin. Hide well, kitten. Wait for me. He vanished into the fray. Sword gleaming. Hide? Hardly. I reclaimed my seat. Scanning the storm. There stood Alex, calm as carved jade while cutting down attackers. Yet I caught the triumphant glint in his eyes. These assassins were pawns in his grand play. Sacrificial lambs for political gain. Sophia trembled beside me, poised to flee. My grip anchored her. One meaningful look stayed her panic, our silent pact holding. She turned to Crown Prince Alex Taylor, her eyes blazing with fervor as she murmured aloud, "Only a life-saving grace deserves such a sacrifice." Yes. A life-saving grace, this was it. The opportunity she'd been desperately awaiting. I lowered my head in the shadows, lips curling in satisfaction. This lifetime, I was no longer her primary target. Through my manipulations, Alex had become her prey. To my eyes now, the entire world seemed drained of color. Only John remained vivid, his black robes billowing like some demon risen from hell to claim souls, yet paradoxically radiant as a celestial savior descending to mortal realms. The assassin's blade neared the Emperor's throat. At the critical moment, a flash of steel sliced through the air. The attacker collapsed with a severed windpipe. John had saved the sovereign's life. "Whose son are you?" The Emperor's voice trembled with post-crisis relief. John stood protectively before the monarch, each step leaving corpses in his wake. Sword gleams danced like lethal fire blossoms, blood spraying in macabre patterns across the stone. From this crimson tableau, his cold baritone resonated, "John Wilson." The courtiers stared in stunned silence. None could reconcile this merciless warrior with the Wilson family's bastard, the same youth they'd scorned as gutter filth for over a decade. Even John's own father gaped in disbelief. The crowd had forgotten this ferocity was John's birthright. He was meant to blaze across the heavens like a comet, not wallow in their petty contempt. Crown Prince Alex Taylor watched dumbstruck from nearby. In his meticulously crafted schemes, he should have been the hero saving the Emperor. The miscalculation left him momentarily paralyzed, a fatal lapse amidst flying steel. Assassins redirected their assault toward the distracted prince. That's when Sophia made her move. "Your Highness." She threw herself before Alex with dramatic resolve, taking a sword strike meant for him. Blood bloomed across her robes as she collapsed into his arms. Alex stared at the bleeding woman, shock overriding courtly composure. "Why would you?" I observed distantly, barely suppressing laughter. The prince's bewilderment was understandable. For years, he'd viewed Sophia as a pawn, her petty ambitions transparent beneath his manipulative gaze. He'd sooner expect his own death than the sacrificial act from her. Sophia's calculations were precise. The wound looked grave but avoided vital organs. Yet the fool never noticed, the blade had been poisoned. She appeared alive yet was already dead. The irony? She remained oblivious. Sophia's face contorted in pain, but she seized the moment to confess, "Alex, I've loved you for years. Taking this sword strike for you, I'd die without regret." The Crown Prince looked as though he'd seen a ghost. Right on cue, shouts erupted from the crowd, "The Crown Prince is in danger. Protect His Highness." The clamor swelled as more guards rushed toward Alex, leaving the Emperor and Empress increasingly exposed. The Emperor's expression darkened with every retreating soldier. I smiled. Alex had overplayed his hand with those political alliances. Desperation breeds opportunity. One well-timed shout could shift an entire battlefield. Everything unfolded as planned. Yet I waited, eyes closed, until hearing the telltale whistle of steel behind me. He came, the same man who tried to kill me in my past life. Who'd wounded John and doomed him to chronic illness. The assassin's blade hissed from its sheath. Now, whirling around, I slashed his throat with the dagger hidden in my sleeve. John had taught me this move during his final days, when even speaking drained him. Emily, he'd rasped, bloodless lips curving. Never hesitate when striking lethally. Hot blood sprayed my dress and face as the assassin collapsed. Sword clattering. I smirked at his dying glare. I endured everything, just to kill you myself. Stepping over his corpse, I approached John only to spot another blade aiming for his back. 2 autumn leaves shot from my fingertips, blinding the attacker. John glanced at the bloodied foliage, then at me. Leaf blade technique, I said lightly, the same skill I'd refused to learn in our previous life. Even when he'd threatened to make me bathe him if I failed. His eyebrow arched as he continued fighting, a faint smile playing beneath the carnage. You've practiced well. Did you have a teacher? I curved my lips slightly. My beloved taught me. John's eyes flashed with barely restrained jealousy. Your beloved? For a moment, it seemed he might go sever that beloved's head from its shoulders. I quickly soothed him with truth. I learned from you. In my dreams. John, I smiled coyly. Therefore, you're my teacher. And my beloved. As Emily, the Smith family's legitimate daughter and the capital's most accomplished young lady, I was the very model of aristocratic grace. My smiles revealed no teeth. My manners dripped refinement. By all rights, I should have been trembling among the noble women's ranks. Yet here I stood beside John, shielding the emperor and empress. Where his sword flashed, corpses piled like wheat. When I drew my bow, 3 arrows flew as one. The pampered sons of nobility gaped at us, these same brats who'd once tormented John during his youth. Now they cowered behind our silhouettes, reduced to sniveling vermin wallowing in muck. When the bloodshed ceased, John and I stood shoulder to shoulder surveying the crimson aftermath. He murmured low, "Miss Emily, does this blade serve you well?" I nodded, lips curving. "Excellently." John laughed then, his jade-pale face splattered with gore enhancing his fox-like beauty. "Your satisfaction is all that matters." And satisfied I was. The assassins lay dead. Sophia would perish from poison. As for Alex, after tonight's debacle, the crown prince might as well be a dead man walking. Every soul who'd harmed John in our previous life now lay in ruin. Only one remained. Myself. John. I asked softly. If someone you cherished above all, someone you'd have gutted yourself for, doubted you unto your dying breath, would you hate them in the next life? How should they atone? He paused mid-sword cleaning, standing amid corpses to pierce me with that serpent gaze. I don't act without gain. Any kindness I show was first given tenfold. Blood dripped from his blade as he stepped closer. If I offer my heart, it's because she first gave me her soul. Her distrust could only stem from my failures. Why hate? What debt exists? His sword tip lifted my chin gently. In another life, I'd simply keep her chained to my side. Love her more fiercely. Make her believe. My vision blurred. Tears fell like shattered crystal. John's face darkened, panic cracking his icy composure as he gripped my shoulders, a beast fearing its treasure might dissolve. What are you crying for? Where are you hurt? I threw myself into his arms without caring about propriety. John, you're truly out of your mind. Not just a madman, but a complete fool. His entire body stiffened, the sword clattering to the ground. After long moments, he finally curved his lips in that familiar sardonic smile. Voice rough with restraint. Emily, if you don't let go now, I won't be able to hold back anymore. After the Autumn Hunt assassination attempt, accusations flooded the court. Some reported Crown Prince Alex had prior knowledge of the plot but concealed it. Others denounced him for forming factions and conspiring against the throne. Wave after wave of evidence emerged, all orchestrated by John. The emperor in his fury deposed Alex, throwing him into the imperial prison. A single hunting trip destroyed years of Alex's meticulous planning while propelling John to become the court's rising star. As for me, I received enough imperial rewards to fill 3 carriages. My parents and Mike stared at me as if seeing a stranger, astonished by the wild temperament I'd revealed during the hunt. They demanded to know when I'd mastered archery. I invented some flimsy excuse they pretended to believe. Father sighed. These years must have been hard on you. Our household's confined world and that damned prodigy scholar reputation forced you to suppress your true nature. Mike chimed in. Sis, when you drew that bow, my jaw hit the floor. If you weren't my sister, I'd marry you myself with 8-carriage pomp. Father smacked the back of Mike's head. Watch your mouth. Boy, you want the whole capital laughing at us? Mother simply smiled her gentle smile. For once, our home felt peaceful. Earlier, Father and I had uncovered Sophia's evidence of poisoning Mother. The usually dignified man raged for hours, cursing until he collapsed hoarse and dizzy. Sophia, lacking John's unnatural resilience after being stabbed, already had poison rotting her organs. She lay dying, cackling madly as Father berated her. Old bastard, she shrieked between coughs, still delusional about becoming crown princess. I'll have your whole clan executed. You'll all kneel at my mother's grave. She died feverish and ignorant, unaware the political landscape had shifted. Unaware her precious Alex would soon join her in death. When the guards found Alex's suicide note in his cell, it detailed his palace struggles without a word of remorse for those he destroyed. In truth, even in my previous life, Alex never truly won. That year when John saved me, he'd also secretly protected my family. Father later allied with John's faction, both men keeping me in the dark during their dangerous machinations. In the end, John Wilson overthrew Crown Prince Alex, though he himself collapsed in the process. Years later, I still vividly remember the first time Alex ventured out of the palace incognito. The young prince clenched his fists, eyes red-rimmed as he gazed at the starving beggars on the streets. Emily, he vowed to me with trembling sincerity, when I become emperor, I'll eradicate famine and poverty from this land. We were childhood sweethearts then, that golden-haired prince still brimming with idealism. But gradually, the boy who believed in justice and compassion disappeared. He never returned, not even in death. The Mid-Autumn Palace banquet proceeded despite recent assassinations and political upheavals. Seated among the nobles, Emily and I had become the imperial couple's favorite young protégés. Lavish dances masked the bloodshed beneath courtly manners. From their golden thrones, the emperor and empress smiled benevolently. What more could our brightest stars desire? The emperor inquired. My gaze met John's across the banquet hall, dressed in crimson robes that accentuated his striking features. He resembled some mythical fox spirit as he rose gracefully. Your Majesties. His velvet voice carried through the hall. I wish to wed. Laughter rippled through the court. Amidst the merriment, those piercing eyes found mine with predatory focus. When royal attention turned to me, I lowered my lashes demurely. This humble subject desires marriage. The imperial decree came that very night. The Wilson and Smith families would unite through matrimony. 6 months later, scarlet bridal silks flooded the capital as John escorted me to our new estate. Our wedding chamber revealed walls covered with vivid portraits. Each canvas depicted me laughing by lotus ponds, reading in moonlit pavilions, even one showing me in bridal attire far simpler than today's opulent gown. My painted self wore sorrow like ceremonial makeup. Trembling fingers traced the familiar embroidery. John, I whispered, recognizing the mourning dress from my past life's tragic wedding. How could you paint what you never saw? His arms encircled me as he buried his face in my hair. This one, his voice cracked with raw emotion. I dreamt it last week. You were weeping over my corpse. calling my name until your throat bled. I couldn't even wipe your tears. The confession hung between us, heavy with lifetimes of unfinished anguish. Outside our window, autumn leaves fell like drops of sealing wax on fate's unopened letter. Later, I saw you again wearing bridal robes, stepping into my coffin, saying you feared the afterlife would be cold for me. So you lit a fire. Yet you laid beside me in those flames, never escaping. Waking from the nightmare, my chest burned with anguish. Only after painting this portrait did the pain subside. Nestled in John's arms, my eyes grew increasingly red. John pinched my tear-stained cheeks, laughing recklessly. Silly girl. Nightmares are always lies. Sweet dreams, those are real. I nodded repeatedly in agreement. He then nipped my earlobe, carrying me to bed while murmuring against my lips, "Heartless little minx. You've truly made me wait." With those words, he lowered his head in a shower of tender kisses. John, you were born to the wrong era. I loved the wrong soul. But now, among all living creatures and countless charms, spring reigns over southern rivers, sunsets along endless horizons. I've witnessed them all. None compare to you.